My daughter called me at 2 in the morning, her voice small and trembling with cold. "Dad, please open the door. I'm freezing out here." That sentence alone would have been completely ordinary if Lily hadn't been dead for 4 full years. I shot upright in bed, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The old rotary phone on the nightstand kept screaming its shrill ring, slicing straight through the darkness. At 70 years old, I was used to waking up at odd hours, but never because of a phone call like this. The clock on the wall glowed exactly 2 a.m., not a minute earlier or later. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to the channel, like button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Outside, heavy Oregon rain hammered the windows of my Victorian house on Maple Street in southeast Portland. It was the kind of endless, soaking rain that makes the whole city feel abandoned. My hands shook so badly I could barely lift the receiver to my ear. "Hello," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. For a long moment there was nothing but silence and the soft patter of rain, as if the person on the other end was standing outside in the storm. Then her voice came through, soft, fragile, unmistakably Lily's voice. "Dad, I'm so cold. Please let me in." My throat closed like someone had squeezed it shut. It had the exact same little rasp at the end of every sentence, the same gentle way she had stopped calling me Daddy the day she turned 16. "Who is this?" I croaked. "It's me." "Dad." A tiny pause, then quieter. "When we're scared of the dark, we light up our hearts." The room actually spun around me. That phrase was our secret, something we invented together when she was 8 years old during a terrifying blackout. I had never told another living soul, not even Abigail, my wife, before cancer took her 6 years ago. "This isn't funny," I said, my voice cracking into pieces. "My daughter died 4 years ago." "Dad," the voice answered, gentle and patient. "Do you remember the red umbrella you bought me at the Saturday farmers market on Hawthorne Boulevard? You forgot yours that morning. We got absolutely soaked walking home, but I laughed the whole way." My knees buckled underneath me. I had never told anyone, not one single person, about that umbrella or that perfect rainy Saturday. I gripped the edge of the nightstand so I wouldn't fall. "Where are you?" I whispered. "Right outside your front door." The voice answered, "Please, Dad. I can't stay out here much longer." The line went dead with a soft click. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, receiver still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing but the dial tone. Then, slowly, I set the phone down and walked through the dark hallway toward the front door. Every floorboard creaked under my bare feet. The house felt enormous and completely empty, exactly the way it had felt every day since I buried my only child. I reached the door and pressed my eye to the peephole. There, under the weak yellow glow of the porch light, stood a small figure in the pouring rain, dark, wet hair stuck to her face. She wore the same gray hooded jacket Lily lived in during college. For one heartbeat, I swore it was her. My hand shook so violently I could barely turn the deadbolt. Cold, wet air rushed in. Rain misted my face, but the porch was empty. Just the swaying trees and the orange streetlights glowing through the fog. I stepped outside barefoot onto the freezing wooden planks. That's when I saw them. Small, wet, bare footprints pressed into the porch boards, as if someone had been standing there a very long time, shivering. Morning didn't make anything better. It only made everything sharper and more impossible. Gray dawn light crept through the curtains as I shuffled back to the front door, joints aching from a night without sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind sounded like breathing. The footprints were still there, faint but perfectly clear in the daylight. I knelt down and touched one with my fingertips. It was dry now, but the shape remained. Small, bare, real. "Mr. Carver," a voice called. I looked up. My neighbors Henry Thompson and his wife Ruth stood at the gate in yellow raincoats. "We saw your lights on at 2, Henry said. "Everything all right?" "Couldn't sleep," I muttered. Ruth looked at me with soft, pitying eyes. "You should really talk to someone. Dear, grief does strange things to the mind." Their kindness only made the loneliness worse. By noon, I had almost convinced myself it was all a terrible dream. Then the familiar black Mercedes purred into my driveway. My son-in-law, Dr. Nathan Reed, stepped out looking perfect as always. Cream shirt pressed, charcoal slacks, expensive watch catching the light. That same woodsy cologne reaching me before he did. "Henry." His smile never reached his eyes. "The Thompsons were worried about you. You don't look well." "I'm fine," I said weakly. He studied me the way he studies patients in his office. "Are you sleeping enough? Taking your medication?" he asked smoothly. "I don't need medication." The words came out sharper than I meant. Something cold flashed across his face, then disappeared behind the perfect smile again. "Of course not," he said. "I'm just concerned. You're 70, living alone. It's completely natural for the mind to play tricks at your age. Grief is powerful. Henry, it can make us see things, hear things that simply aren't there. I want to help. You're the only family I have left." He paused, letting Lily's name hang unspoken in the air between us. "If you ever need to talk, my door is always open. Off-the-record sessions. I have openings this week. I don't need therapy. Everyone needs someone to talk to. Henry." His hand landed on my shoulder. Firm, almost possessive. "Especially at your age. Isolation isn't healthy." "I'll think about it," I said. His perfect smile returned. "Good. I'll check in later this week." He walked back to the Mercedes and drove away without a single hair out of place. I stood at the living room window long after he was gone, watching the empty, rain-slick street. The house felt colder than before. Something about the way Nathan looked at me, like I was a problem that needed to be solved, made my skin crawl. For the first time, I wondered why he was so desperate to convince me I was losing my mind. That afternoon, I tried to keep busy by cleaning. Anything to keep my hands moving and my thoughts from circling. The house had gathered 4 years of dust and untouched memories. I started with the living room bookshelf. Old novels, photo albums, books Abigail never finished before she died. I pulled them out one by one, wiping the covers, trying not to think about footprints or midnight phone calls or Nathan's cold smile. Then my fingers brushed a small yellowed envelope tucked behind a row of Jane Austen novels. My name was written on the front in handwriting I would know anywhere. Lily's handwriting. "Henry Carver. Don't be mad until you finish reading." It said. My hands started shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I opened it with careful fingers. The letter was dated 3 weeks before the crash. "Dad, I don't know who else to tell this to. I'm terrified you'll be angry. But I'm more terrified to stay silent. I think Nathan is cheating on me. There's a female patient he sees way too often. He stays late at the clinic, comes home smelling like perfume that isn't mine. When I ask, He gets angry, says I'm paranoid, says I'm exactly like you, always looking for problems that aren't there. He controls everything now. Who I see, where I go. He checks my phone while I'm asleep, says it's because he cares, but it feels like a cage. Dad, I wanted to leave him, but every time I try to talk about it, he twists everything until I feel crazy, until I doubt my own memories. If something happens to me, Dad, please don't believe everything Nathan says. The letter slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor. I sat down hard among the scattered books, feeling the walls close in around me. She had tried to warn me, and I had told her to work it out, to give him another chance. I had sent her straight back into that house. Eventually, I stood up, folded the letter, and slipped it into my shirt pocket, right over my heart. I needed air. I needed to see her. I drove on autopilot to Willow Lawn Cemetery on the hill above the Willamette River. Rows of headstones under dripping pine trees. The stone was simple. Lily Carver Reed, beloved daughter, 1994-2021. I knelt in the wet grass and placed my hand on the cold granite. I'm so sorry, baby, I whispered. I should have listened. That's when I saw it, leaning against the wilted flowers I had left weeks earlier. A small rag doll in a faded red dress with button eyes. It was Lily's childhood doll, the one she kept under her bed, the one I had saved and locked in a keepsake box in my bedroom closet after she died. My pulse roared in my ears. The doll was damp from the mist. Someone had taken it from my house and left it here. I drove home too fast, tires skidding on wet pavement. I burst through the front door, ran to my bedroom, yanked open the closet, pulled down the keepsake box from the top shelf. Inside were her tiny baby shoes, a first-grade drawing, her high school diploma, everything exactly where I left it. Except the doll was gone. Someone had been inside my house, someone who knew exactly which treasure would hurt me the most. That evening, my nephew Mason Carver showed up at my door, soaked from the rain. I had barely finished telling him about the phone call, the footprints, the letter, and the missing doll when he was already typing notes into his phone, building a case in his head. Uncle Henry, he said, pacing my living room like a caged wolf. I know this sounds insane, but you need to hear me out. Mason was 29, tall and wiry, with the restless energy of someone who chases truths other people run from. He ran a true crime podcast called Forgotten Trails and had been quietly digging into Lily's crash for years. I've never believed it was an accident, he said, setting his phone on the coffee table. The timing, the details, everything felt wrong from day one. I leaned forward. What do you mean, 4 years ago, Lily died in a single-car crash on Highway 26 rainy night? Car left the road, hit a tree. Police called it accidental. Wet roads, possible distraction. Mason exhaled hard. I asked a friend at Portland PD to pull the full file for me last year. He opened photos and reports on his phone and turned the screen toward me. Look at this. Brake lines showed unusual wear. The mechanic's note literally says it looked deliberate, almost sliced. And this, he swiped again. Airbag never deployed. It should have on impact, but the system was completely disabled. Disabled, my voice came out rough and broken, or deliberately turned off, Mason said quietly. Brake lines don't cut themselves. Airbags don't fail on a car that was serviced 2 weeks before the crash at a shop Nathan personally recommended. The room actually tilted sideways. You think someone... I couldn't finish the sentence. I think someone wanted it to look like a tragic accident, he answered. Someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Lily's letter burned against my chest. If something happens to me, don't believe everything Nathan says. Nathan, I whispered. Mason held my gaze steady. Your son-in-law is a clinical psychologist. Brilliant, methodical. He understands manipulation better than anyone on earth. Why would he do this? We don't know the full motive yet, Mason said, running a hand through his wet hair. But that letter is motive. If Lily was planning to leave him or expose the affair, he had everything to lose. Reputation, license, freedom. I pictured Nathan that morning, calm, controlled, telling me the mind plays tricks at your age. He had been trying to make me doubt my own sanity from the very first moment. We need proof. Real, solid proof we can take to the police, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Exactly. Mason nodded. But we have to be careful. If Nathan suspects we're digging, he'll bury everything. Or worse. For the first time since the call, I didn't feel helpless. I felt furious. At Nathan. At myself. At the lie we had all accepted for 4 long years. We need more evidence, Mason said, eyes sharp and bright. Uncle Henry, where did Lily keep her laptop? We went to Lily's old bedroom that night. I hadn't opened that door in months. The door creaked open, and the faint scent of lavender, her favorite, drifted out. Everything was exactly as she left it. Bed neatly made. Framed photo of her and Abigail smiling on the dresser. Like a shrine frozen in time. Mason went straight to the desk where her dusty MacBook still sat. Password, he asked. I hesitated, then whispered, Light our hearts. All one word. He typed it in. The screen unlocked with a soft chime. For a moment, we just stared at the desktop photo of Lily laughing on the coast. Mason clicked through folders, photos, work files, then found one labeled private. Inside were hundreds of diary entries stretching back years. Uncle, you need to see this, he said quietly. I sat beside him and we started reading together. The early entries were normal. Work stress, weekend plans, little happy moments. Then the tone shifted darker and darker. Nathan doesn't want me going out with friends anymore. Says they're a bad influence. He checked my phone last night while I slept. Says it's because he loves me so much. I saw a late-night text on his phone from a patient. Can't wait to see you tonight. When I asked, he said I was paranoid and overreacting. My hands turned into fists on the desk. I feel like I'm losing my mind. He says things that make me doubt my own memory. Makes me feel like I'm the problem. Like I'm crazy. Mason scrolled faster. The entries grew darker still. He hates when I visit Dad. Says it makes me weak and dependent. But when I'm with Dad, I feel safe again. I feel like myself. I told him I was unhappy. He didn't yell. He just smiled that calm smile and said, If you leave, no one will believe you. I'm a psychologist. People trust me. They'll think you're unstable, dramatic, just like your father. Tears burned my eyes and rolled down my cheeks. The final entry was dated 4 days before her death. I'm terrified. Dad, I think Nathan would protect his reputation over my life. If something happens to me, don't believe everything he says. I'm going to find proof. I have to. The screen blurred through my tears. She knew. I whispered. She knew he was dangerous and she was trying to protect us both. Mason closed the laptop, jaw clenched tight. She tried to save herself and you, Uncle Henry, but she ran out of time. We sat in heavy silence until the grandfather clock in the hall struck 2:15 a.m. 1 second later, the landline rang, sharp and insistent. Mason and I locked eyes. I walked to the hallway on legs that barely worked, picked up the receiver on the third ring. Hello, silence. Then the sound of rain. Then her voice, tired and fragile. Dad, I'm listening. I whispered into the phone. Don't trust Nathan, she said slowly. Go to Riverside Community Hospital in Salem. Look for my name. That's where it all started. Where what started? I begged, but the line was already dead. I stood frozen, listening to the dial tone buzz in my ear. Mason appeared beside me. What did she say, Riverside Community Hospital in Salem? I whispered. Abigail gave birth to Lily there 31 years ago. Mason's eyes hardened with determination. Before we go to the hospital, we need to know what else Nathan is hiding. If Lily was gathering proof, he probably took it. His office is the logical place. My friend Alex works night cleaning at the clinic. He can get us in tonight. 20 minutes later, we stood in the dark alley behind Harmony Wellness Center on Hawthorne Boulevard, rain soaking through our jackets. A side door cracked open. Alex whispered, 15 minutes max. Cameras are on a loop, but move fast. The clinic was eerie and silent at night. Our footsteps echoed on the polished floors as we climbed to the third floor. Nathan's office waited at the end of the hall, brass nameplate gleaming under the emergency lights. Dr. Nathan Reed, clinical psychologist. Alex swiped his key card. I'll keep watch. Go. Inside smelled of leather furniture and Nathan's expensive woodsy cologne. Everything was immaculate. Files perfectly aligned. Desk spotless. Diplomas framed on the wall. Mason found a locked storage room at the back. Picked it in seconds with a small tool. Inside were metal shelves, filing cabinets, and an old laptop connected to an external hard drive sitting on a desk in the corner. Mason powered it on. Folders appeared labeled with patient initials and date ranges. He opened one labeled ER 2021-2025. Dozens of video files from a hidden camera filled the screen. He clicked the most recent file. The footage showed Nathan's office from a corner angle. Nathan sitting calmly in his chair, pen in hand. On the couch sat a young woman, and my breath completely stopped. She looked exactly like Lily. Same face, same green eyes, same nervous way of tucking hair behind her ear. I don't feel like I belong in my family, she told Nathan. I've felt it my whole life, like I'm just a guest. They love me, but I'm not really theirs. Tell me more about that, Nathan said, voice smooth and clinical. I know I was adopted. The story never added up. The hospital they say I was born in closed decades ago. When I ask questions, they change the subject. Do you think they're hiding something? I think I was born somewhere small with no real records. Somewhere people could make babies disappear if they wanted to. The video ended, Mason whispered. She's identical to Lily. Not just similar. Identical. My mind reeled. A woman who was Lily's exact twin. Adopted under shady circumstances. Born in a hospital with missing records. And Nathan was treating her. We copied every single file to a thumb drive, shut everything down, and slipped back out into the rainy night. As we drove away, one question burned hotter than all the others. Who was she? And why was Nathan seeing someone who looked exactly like my dead daughter? The next morning, we drove 3 hours south to Riverside Community Hospital, a tired brick building on the edge of Salem surrounded by wet fields. The air inside smelled of old paper and bleach. An older clerk named Mrs. Dawson sat behind the desk, wearing reading glasses on a chain. "We're looking for birth records from November 1994, Mason told her. She studied us for a long moment, then disappeared into the back, returning with a thick, yellowed folder. I flipped through the pages with shaking hands until I found Abigail Carver's name, but the number of infants had been altered. You could see the smudged correction where someone had changed it from 2 to 1. This record was tampered with, Mason said quietly. Mrs. Dawson glanced nervously at the door, then lowered her voice to a whisper. Doctor. Harlan, who ran obstetrics back then, used to sell babies. Not many, just a few. Desperate couples. Cash only. No paperwork. Everything off the books. One couple from Bend paid $20,000 for a newborn girl the exact same day your wife delivered. I remember because the woman cried when she held her. Their names were Russell and Diane Harper. They still live at 312 Cedar Ridge Road in Bend. My chest caved in. Abigail gave birth to twins, and someone stole one of them 31 years ago. We left immediately and drove 5 more hours across the state to Bend, the landscape changing from wet valleys to high desert pines. By sunset, we stood at 312 Cedar Ridge Road, a modest ranch house with a tidy lawn. Russell Harper was raking leaves. He dropped the rake when I said Lily's name. Diane came to the door, eyes already red. We adopted our daughter Emma privately in 1994, she said, voice breaking. We couldn't have children. Doctor, Harlan arranged everything. $20,000 cash. Emma always felt she didn't belong. 2 years ago, she moved to Portland for a fresh start and started seeing a therapist. Dr. Nathan Reed. My blood turned to ice in my veins. Nathan had known about Emma the entire time, had been treating her, manipulating her exactly the way he manipulated Lily. On the long drive home, Mason wanted to confront him immediately. But I said, wait. We need him to confess on tape first. That night, Alex called Mason. Urgent. Meet me now. I found something in the files you copied. Mason grabbed his motorcycle helmet. Back in an hour. Uncle Henry. 50 minutes later, my phone rang. Hospital calling. Mason was in an accident. In the ER, he lay bruised and bleeding. Left arm in a sling. My brakes were cut. He rasped. Someone wanted me dead tonight. The officer standing nearby confirmed they were treating it as attempted murder. First Lily, now Mason. Nathan was eliminating everyone who got too close to the truth. When I finally walked back into my house that night, I was not alone. The kitchen light was on. A woman sat at my table with her back to me. Long dark hair falling over her shoulders. She turned slowly. Lily's face. Lily's green eyes. Lily's delicate hands folded on the table. But something was slightly off. The expression. The way she held herself. Dad, she whispered. I've been trapped. Someone is keeping me here against my will. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Lily was dead. I had buried her myself. Before I could speak, a knock sounded at the front door. I opened it with shaking hands. Doctor. Nathan Reed stood on my porch, looking immaculate even at midnight. Pressed shirt, expensive watch, that polished, perfect smile. Henry, he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I'm glad I caught you. We need to talk. I pointed toward the kitchen, voice breaking. Who is she? That woman sitting right there. Who is she? Nathan looked straight into the empty kitchen. Nothing changed in his expression. Henry, there is no one here, he said softly. I turned back. The chair was empty, the room silent, but I had seen her. I had heard her. Nathan's tone turned gentle and patronizing. This is exactly what I was afraid of. The grief, the isolation. They're affecting your mind. You're seeing things that aren't there. He pulled a folded document from his briefcase and set it on the table. Power of attorney. It gives me authority to manage your assets and medical decisions for your own safety. Sign it. Henry, he said calmly. I'll take care of everything. The house, Lily's insurance money, all of it. You won't have to worry anymore. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. My home, everything I had left. I need time, I whispered. I can't think right now. His smile twitched, strained for just a second, of course. But don't wait too long. You're clearly not safe alone. He snapped his briefcase shut and left. After he was gone, I stood motionless in the silent kitchen. Then I heard it. The soft click of the back door closing. She had been real. She had slipped out while Nathan kept me talking. At exactly 2:15 a.m., the phone rang again. I answered without a word. Dad. The voice was tired, frightened, shaking with tears. I need you to know something important. He makes me call you. He tells me exactly what to say. He made me come tonight, made me sit at your table, scare you, then leave through the back door. He wanted you to think you were going crazy. Why are you helping him? I whispered. Though I already knew the answer, I didn't know I was helping him. She cried. He told me I was sick, that my memories were lies, that he was only trying to help me. But when I saw your face tonight, I knew something was horribly wrong. Will you help me stop him? I asked into the darkness. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then, I'm scared. But yes, the line went dead. The next morning, I texted Nathan. Come at 11 tonight. I'm ready to sign. Then I prepared carefully. I set my phone to record audio and hid it behind books on the living room shelf, microphone facing out. I rehearsed every word, every expression, every second I needed him to speak. Tonight at 11, the truth would finally come out. I just had to stay alive long enough to hear it. At 11:05 p.m., Nathan Reed walked into my house for the last time, briefcase in hand, perfect smile in place. Henry, he said, setting the power of attorney papers on the coffee table. I'm glad you've come to your senses. I stayed standing. I went to Riverside Community Hospital. I saw the records. 2 babies. I met the Harpers. I know everything. His smile didn't falter for a second. Old records are messy. Clerical errors happen all the time. The brake lines on Lily's car. The airbag that never deployed. You had motive. I said, motive. He laughed softly, cold and empty. You're grieving, Henry. You're imagining conspiracies because it's easier than accepting the truth. No one would believe an old man having hallucinations anyway. Right. His eyes hardened. The smile finally vanished. Correct. And after tonight, you'll sign yourself into my care voluntarily. I'll manage the house, the insurance money, everything. Lily would have wanted that. Lily wanted to leave you, I said, voice shaking with rage. His jaw tightened. She was emotional, unstable. I tried to help her. She wouldn't listen. So I allowed circumstances to align. A car can fail on a rainy night. Tragic accident. The police believed every word. My blood ran cold. He had just confessed, and my phone was recording every syllable. You killed her, I whispered. I allowed her to remove herself from an equation that no longer worked for me. He corrected, stepping closer. Now you'll do the same. Sign the paper. Henry, or I'll have you committed by morning. That was when the front door opened without a knock. Emma Harper stepped inside, pale but determined, tears on her cheeks. "I'm not Lily," she said, voice trembling. "My name is Emma. We're twins. He told me my father abandoned me. He said I had to punish you for leaving me behind." She turned to Nathan. "You lied to me. You used me." Nathan's hand slid into his coat and pulled out a syringe, needle glinting under the lamp. "Both of you are liabilities now," he said, voice perfectly calm, advancing toward us. Emma stepped between us. "No," she shouted. He grabbed her arm hard, but she fought back with everything she had. I lunged for the heavy glass vase on the side table and swung it with all my strength. It connected with Nathan's skull with a sickening crack. He stumbled, dropped the syringe, and collapsed to the floor. Seconds later, the front door burst open. Police flooded in with weapons drawn. Behind them stood Mason, arm still in a sling, holding up his phone. "I called them the moment I started getting live audio from your phone. Uncle Henry." They heard everything. 6 months later, after a long and painful trial. Dr. Nathan Reed was sentenced to 35 years in prison for manslaughter, psychological manipulation, fraud, and facilitating an illegal adoption. Emma and I started slowly. Coffee first, then long dinners, learning who the other really was. One soft, rainy afternoon, we stood together at Lily's grave in Willow Lawn Cemetery. Light rain falling around us. "I wish I had known her," Emma whispered, voice thick. "She would have loved you," I said, barely able to speak. A month later, Emma moved into the guest room, not as a replacement for Lily, but as herself, as family, as my daughter. Now, when the clock chimes 2 a.m., the house is warm and full of quiet laughter drifting down the hall. Mason texts silly memes in our new family group chat. Ordinary, beautiful life. I walk to the front door, now locked with a single turn of the key. No shadows, no wet footprints, no terrified voice begging to be let in. Just peace at last. The night doesn't scare me anymore. Looking back, I almost lost everything. Not just to Nathan's manipulation, but to my own doubt and isolation. If there is one lesson from this true story, it's this: trust your instincts. Even when the whole world tells you you're crazy, never let anyone, no matter how credible or professional, convince you that your reality isn't real. Hold tight to the people who love you. Mason risked his life for the truth. Emma chose honesty over fear. And never ignore the red flags. Evil often wears a perfect smile and an expensive watch, but truth will always find its way to the surface. This isn't just another grandpa story I tell to pass the time. This is a true story about manipulation, loss, and fighting to reclaim your life. Don't be like me. Don't wait 4 years to ask the hard questions. Sometimes one story can save a life. And that, my friends, is the end of this chilling true story. Thank you for staying with me until the very last word. If anything in this tale made your heart race, or if you have questions about Lily, Emma, Nathan, or even the smallest detail, please drop them in the comments below. I read every single one, and I will answer as many as I can. Tell me where you're listening from tonight. Share what moment shocked you the most. Your thoughts keep this channel alive. For the next terrifying story, please subscribe to the channel. Click the video on the left. Turn on the bell, stay close, and I'll see you very soon. Sleep well, if you can. Good night.